access, to a lot of their other friends. And so going to school is a way to meet their friends. So I know they're glad to be going back.
All right, Ms. Walker, Mr. Draper is with us.
Okay, great. All right. If it's all right then with everybody, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And the first thing, we just have a short agenda, but the first thing is approval of the agenda. So can I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Or second.
Okay. Who moved and who seconded?
Butch moved
Okay.
it. Mr.
All right,
Beaufort.
great. All right. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? All right. Next order of business is the COVID-19 safety protocols. Mr. Cheeseman, I'll turn this over to you.
Yes, ma'am. So first and foremost, thank you to the Board of Education for assembling so quickly today to discuss information and a recommendation that I'd like to make to you specifically regarding our COVID-19 protocols moving forward in our schools to open up the school year. Mr. Madsen, let me first recognize his attendance here. Thank you to Jim Madsen and all of the Beaufort County Health Department, officials, staff, everyone who's been helping us guide the way since March of 2020 for that matter. But Jim Madsen is in the Zoom room, so he will be able to answer some questions should you have some directly to him. In short, he and I have had conversation, but I did send to you a well put together chart that he has put together to help us really guide our decision making and at least have information around recommendations that he and his department are making moving forward. And I sent that to you via email. But in short, right now, what we look at in Beaufort County is the cases that we have in terms of COVID, especially since the Delta variant is prevalent in our county, but also what does it look like in our schools? Now, initially, when the board voted for optional masks, we were at a level where I felt comfortable in that regard of making that recommendation to you. Looking at the chart of information where Mr. Madsen and his team have put step levels specifically around the Beaufort County 7-day average of cases, we're starting to move forward and move up into that, which has caught our attention. Now, when you think about that chart, and you're thinking on that chart of that numeric system of 4 or under, might be a place where you have optional masks. And back in June, you were there. Where now today's statistic is 21.1. So you've increased very significantly in a short amount of time. Based on the chart, it's a recommendation for an attestation requirement, which we've sent to all principals. All employees will actually fill one out just like last year. All students will need to complete one with their families, one for the semester. And that's just a very nice way of reminding our families to please keep their students home if they're not well. Please make sure you've taken their temperatures, and please make sure that you follow suit to the COVID protocols of safety. Well, additionally on that line item is after you get to 21 to that 35 marker, you also start really thinking about screening for activities, meaning temperature checks, maybe some other protocols. But in both of those line items of 4 to 20 and 21 to 35, you're really looking at a strong recommendation for wearing masks. Well, when you look at our protocols and the mandate of the toolkit, some of the guidance over time has changed since March of 2020. And specifically what we're looking at is, parent choice versus specifically school district protocol. And I can tell you, even as an individual myself, as a parent of a child in Beaufort County, but also a superintendent who works for you and at the pleasure of your will, there's conflict that I have. And so part of that is, what do I want in the best interest of my own child? But really, what is the job that I need to bring information to you, and how do I do that? So in short, in my best interest of working on behalf of Beaufort County, it's really about the probability of keeping kids in school. How can we really increase the probability of maintaining a school environment? And we look at the toolkit and we look at the mask mandate. Well, in the optional portion of wearing masks, if you consider students, If 2 students or more are in the room, 1 student is not wearing a mask, another student is wearing the mask, the unmasked student tests positive, well, the masked student is going home. That's the way it's currently guided right now. Whereas if you consider making masks mandated across the district for all employees, all adults in the building, all students, well, regarding students, if it's mandated masks and student A wearing a mask tests positive in the classroom and student B wearing a mask does not, only student A goes home. And so it increases the probability of students being able to stay, which is a nice way of saying less students would be quarantined in that circumstance. Now, nothing beats a vaccination, nothing. Right now, 60% of our employees, not just teachers, but our employees across the board, approximately 60% of our employees are vaccinated. Nothing beats the vaccination. That's what keeps you at work. That's what keeps you at school. But as you know, vaccination for children ages 12 through 17 is available, but has not been taken advantage of, maybe at the percentage of which we would like to see within our own county, in our own district. Also note, still today, there's not a vaccination that's been approved for anyone under 12 years old, which places that dilemma back into our elementary schools of what do we do? And so in short, working with Beaufort County Health Department and the chart that they have that's in front of me off to the side here, and also recognizing that masking our students and our employees would increase the probability of kids staying and not being quarantined, I'm making a recommendation to you to reverse your initial decision and vote to make masks mandatory. Now, in that consideration, you can reflect on it, review it, and change that further. You don't have to do that now. It's totally up to you. But that's my current recommendation. And I'm making that recommendation to initiate on Monday, August 23rd. Now, what does that look like, sound like, and feel like? That means during the school day, every human being inside of a building should be masked, period. Vaccination or not, you should be masked. And that means in the classrooms, everyone are masked. In the hallways, everyone are masked. Visitors, volunteers, everyone is masked. Now, where do some differences fall? Athletics, middle schools, high schools, recess. You go outside, you're in the open air, take your mask off. If you're participating in sports outside, take your mask off. If you're participating in sports and activities inside, say such as volleyball, those athletes participating don't wear the mask. The athletes waiting on the side on the bench or to get into the game would be masked. And so in short, what we want to say is we recognize wearing the mask with heavy physical activity is a challenge. So we would not want students to be in harm's way in that way. But my recommendation is specifically right now is to move to a mask mandate initiated August 23rd for Beaufort County schools across all of our schools. Are there any questions?
When we talk about athletic events outside, spectators would not have to wear a mask either, would they?
No.
Okay.
Spectators would not. However, Ms. Walker, that's a great question. Indoor, yes. Yes, we would recommend that they do.
Okay.
Well, you recommend?
Well, I'm recommending it. You can decide if you want to make it mandatory. I'm recommending that you do, but that's up to you.
Quick question. What about mask exemption? Are they honoring that for students and staff? Because I know that's going to be asked. Medical notes.
I think that's a board option.
I think, just in my personal opinion, if someone cannot for a medical reason and they have a doctor's note stating that, as long as, if they were to catch COVID, the liability wouldn't fall on us. I don't know if there's something we'd want them to sign if they turn in a note saying they medically can't wear a mask, then the liability shouldn't be on us if then they catch COVID from somebody in the classroom. You follow what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Now, Ms. Walker, when we talk about masks inside of our spaces, I mean, I'm looking at the building as being like an enclosed space, all right? So I would also include buses. It's the enclosed space. So if a student steps onto a bus, they should be masked.
Oh, that was already the,
That's the state law.
I thought that was
Yes.
the state.
In your optional mask mandate at a previous board meeting, you went option across the board.
Okay, I thought that
Yeah, I didn't.
the
I didn't
attorney
know that.
said that we couldn't do that on the bus.
Right.
The motion was made across the board.
Okay.
And that's why I bring it up as another point of reference.
Can we, I hate that we're back in this situation, cause I hate masks as much as anybody, and you know that. At what point, does he recommends under 4, correct?
Yes, less than 4. And Jim is here if you want to ask him a question directly.
Jim, are you good with that if, when you get down to under 4?
You need to unmute, Jim.
He is.
Yeah, hey, I'm sorry, can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Well,
So the question is, if you're confident, if you hit 4 or less or under 4, that the board could walk away from using masks.
Can't hear him.
You can't hear. Okay. So
my problem, if y'all can hear me now, I'm hearing y'all about 2 minutes after y'all make a conversation.
Oh,
That's fine. So TW's question is, at the end of, if you come down on the 7-day average, under 4, are you confident that it would be a good recommendation to step back from masks and make them optional? Can I call him, or can you call him?
The health department, we recommend a mask all the time right now because of the numbers. But
I know, but my question is, we were below 4 when, at 4 when we made the option. But if we go, now we're at 20. So if we go back below 4, are you comfortable with us going no mask?
Lisa Duke's calling him
Okay.
because he's on a 2-minute delay.
TW, I think the problem is you're going
hey, I'm
to, if
having
you go
trouble
back and forth,
with
back and
Tanya.
forth, to me, it's not going to accomplish anything. When you say, okay, this week mask, this week not mask, I think that's going to send to me, that just doesn't seem appropriate, for lack of better words.
Yeah. All right. So Michael, I have him on phone right now. So Jim, as you may be able to hear, us, TW's question specifically was, you get down to 4 on your chart, whether it's a week from now or months from now, you get down to 4. Are you comfortable then saying optional masks once you get to that point?
Yes, the level of my concern decreases quite significantly when you get down to that low of a number. So even though I'm encouraging mandatory mandatory mask at all times right now, I would be less concerned if you get down to 4. That's why I tried to give y'all some level of steps to this process.
And what is that matrix off of? What was that numbers off of completely?
So Jim,
numbers.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead and clarify his question.
He's asking, how did you assemble your numeric system? What are the numbers based off of?
It starts with the CDC's recommendation of when you're at a low, moderate, or sustained or high risk for spread in the community. So it's based off the transmission numbers. Then I looked at our history over the last year and a half at the peaks of our epi curve and made a determination based off of tweaking it around that.
So I guess we're messing with a CDC guidance is still a moving target again. I guess is what we're doing.
Well, TW, I would think if we can get below 4 and sustain that, then you've got another conversation you need to have. I understand what Michael's saying, back and forth, but I think if you can sustain something under 4 for a length of time, then you've got to reasonably consider going back to optional. At least that would be my take on it.
They're right now predicting that it's going to get a lot worse. And I go back to what Mr. Cheeseman said, that if we could get 90% of the people in this country inoculated and get the vaccine, this wouldn't be an issue and we wouldn't have to be worrying about masks. But that is what it is right now. But they're prognosticating that it's going to get worse right now. So I don't see our 4 even coming into context in the next month or two.
What we're definitely saying is how contagious this variant, Delta variant, really is. It's very, very contagious. And
look at the stats. It's very contagious.
And I know some people that have gotten it that have simply had a 3 or 4 minute conversation with somebody that was positive. Didn't hug, didn't touch, but it was just long enough that they got it. So, our objective, none of us want to see the kids wear masks. We don't. But our objective, in my opinion, has got to be to keep them as safe as possible. And right now, that really is our only thing we can do, along with the other protocols. In that toolkit, Matthew, the kids are not going to be 6 feet apart anymore, though, are they?
No.
Mr. Cheeseman and Miss Carolyn, I do have a question. I know Mr. Cheeseman's recommendation is to begin this on the 23rd. But tomorrow night, we're having our open house for grades 5 through 8. And we are looking at having anywhere from 800 to 1,000 students and parents in the building. I made an alert now call saying that masks were optional, but that brief encounters with people would be best practice. But do you think it's a recommendation that I ask people wear masks tomorrow? Because that's a lot of people in our building all at one time.
Ms. Williams, my recommendation is to initiate it on August 23rd as stated.
I think if they wear a mask, that's great, and if they ask you, should they, I would say, that's certainly an option I would take up. But at this point, if we mandate it starting on the 23rd, then, you don't have a problem if they don't wear them. I mean, I wouldn't hold you liable or that you broke any of our policy. So what is the board's pleasure?
Carolyn, can I speak up?
Yes. Yes.
As TW said, nobody despises masks more than he does, unless it's me. Me and TW can argue over who despises them the most, but pretty much I do. But we're not living right now in the same world that we were 3 weeks ago when we first decided. I mean, I get it. I understand. I've kind of done my own unofficial poll this afternoon. And I can assure you, if I raise my hand and agree to this, my family, my grandkids that go to our schools, pretty much everybody I know is going to be more upset with me than they were probably yesterday, but I can live with that. What I'm more concerned about is keeping the kids in school, keeping our teachers in school, because we do not have, I hope everybody remembers this, we do not have the same remote system set up that we had a year ago. And if all these kids go home under quarantine, it's going to be a whole different world for them learning than it was last year, when it was very difficult last year.
You're
So
right.
I guess what I'm saying is, it looks like I'm going to be, and I am going to say, forced into making a decision against what I don't like. But if it keeps the kids in school, keeps them learning, teachers there, and a little safer, I guess I can just put up with the criticism. So, you know, I would ask
I'm in
one
the same
thing.
boat. As we're meeting, I have people text me going, please don't do this.
You see the phone right here. If you keep
Yeah.
seeing my head turn to the bottom down, it's because it won't stop ringing.
Yes, but I agree with you.
That's okay. That's okay. Nobody made me run for school board. I get it.
That's right.
I would ask one thing, and I agree with Michael too on another point that he was making, is that we can't come every 7 days and say what. And I'm glad that Mr. Madsen is here, and I certainly appreciate everything he is doing. But I don't think we need to every 7 days ask Mr. Madsen what's his recommendation and change again. We can ask him, and because I want to hear from him, because he's the one on the front lines too that knows what's going on. So I want to hear from him. But Michael, I agree. We can't say mask this week, mask not next week, numbers as they go up and down. But Carolyn, could we agree on whatever decision we make, yes or no, that in like 30 days, we can come back to, we meet every 2 weeks. So I'll skip a meeting, go to the next meeting. Can we bring this back up and have another discussion about it and see where we're at? Ask Mr. Madsen for his, where we at that point in time, get his expertise, and because he's the one to tell us, and let's listen to what he has to say. Can we at least agree to review it monthly?
I think so. I think that is everybody okay with us just looking at it monthly?
Or however the group wants to.
Right. And if Mr. Madsen gives us numbers, and they're usually shared publicly, and there's no change, then certainly we won't be changing anything. But yeah, right. We can certainly put it on our agenda to continue to revisit this. I think not that we have to do what all the other school systems do, but a lot of them have reversed, like we're talking about doing it, are doing so with the knowledge that they will revisit it when things change.
Well, I just don't want everybody to think that this is a year-long sentence for them.
Right.
Let's just work through this all together with parents the best we can, and just try to keep everybody in school for as long as we can.
And Matthew, you told us at our last meeting, we still have plenty of disposable masks. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Disposable masks, hand sanitizer, we're prepared.
Good. I've had a bunch of parents say they threw their masks away.
Well, if others are online right now, let me address that. Part of what will keep children healthy is the frequency of cleaning their masks that are cloth and or other substances. So disposable is great, you toss it away. But for those families who are using cloth masks, I just continue to encourage that they clean them frequently for our children, as we did see circumstances where children were wearing masks last year, 3 weeks old, almost 4 weeks old, without having been cleaned. So we need to make sure that we're following up on that.
All right. Okay, board.
Carolyn, before we vote, there was something I've been meaning to ask. Mr. Cheeseman, have we yet, or are we talking, I've got a plan in place for virtual learning this year?
So specifically, if there's 2 items there, Mr. Hodges, specifically as a virtual learning coming into this year, we're face-to-face across the board. It wasn't required by the governor or the General Assembly. So we're only face-to-face. Now, we met with principals last week. We meet with them tomorrow at 8 a.m. again, along with our assistant principals, to again stress the importance of blended learning and also virtual in the circumstance of a large majority of people going home. Yes. So teachers are going to work to really ensure that they maintain the school environment with children, but it may not be what they saw last year. So for example, if one child is quarantined going home, Maybe a teacher has them online. We encourage them to be able to open up so kids can see the classroom. But in terms of that synchronous moment, they may not see that right away. However, in that team meeting tomorrow at 8:00, this is kind of a preview. We'll be going back to our remote learning plan that we utilized last year, making the significant changes and utilizing some of the feedback to prepare ourselves well in advance should the governor shut us all down in the future months for any reason. So we'll be able to be very fast in that rollout, especially since we're a one-to-one district. We know where hotspots need to be. And our teachers know this year that we're asking them to teach in a blended environment and be prepared. So within the first few weeks, we've asked all of our principals to communicate to all of our professional educators to ensure that their families know how to access the resources of the classroom from a home environment.
All right.
Any
Carolyn,
other
can I-
questions? Yes, TW.
Mr. Cheeseman, I talked to you earlier about it this afternoon, but I just wanting to. The students with disabilities, we need to make sure that, I've got one in my family. I just want to make sure that, he can't wear a mask, and we need to make sure we look after those. And the ones with the speech that I discussed with you also this afternoon. If the speech therapist and the child can get 6 feet apart, and we can make that work better than we did last year. And so we can get that as good as we can, that if this goes through, I'm all about making it as easy as we can.
Well, and also in those cases, there are a lot more tools and resources to help students now that we've learned a bit in COVID. So when you think about working with a student around speech and having an opaque mask over top of their mouth, and the teacher can't see their lips and their mouth, well, we do have transparent face shields. There are masks that are transparent that you can use. So there are items that kids will be able to use. But specifically, when we get down to individual students and what their needs are, we're going to address them individually.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then. Nobody wants to, I understand nobody wants to make this motion, y'all, but this is why we're.
So Carolyn, let me just restate it. I'm making a recommendation to the board to make mask mandatory initiating on August 23rd for all students and employees throughout all schools of Beaufort County, including on all buses of Beaufort County schools, which would include both yellow and activity buses.
All right. Do I have anybody that wants to make the motion as Matthew stated? Okay. Can I make the motion? As
Carolyn,
chairman.
I'm a little back and forth based off of the vaccinated. Want to make a motion that says the vaccinated does not need to wear masks and those unvaccinated need to wear masks. I'm back and forth that just a little bit. I understand the recommendation from Mr. Cheeseman, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Also, Mr. Draper has a comment.
Yes.
Oh, was somebody making a motion?
No.
Okay.
Do you have a comment for the group?
Well, I mean, I don't mind making the motion to agree with Matthew's recommendation, but I do want us to verify it, or keep a status going. But I'm with Michael on that sense. I'm worried that we're going to get back into this flip-flop back and forth, which is nonsense. So maybe, we've got to put some, let's start this out day one. Let's revisit it twice a month, or the 15th and the 30th, or the 15th and the 1st of every month. Something of that nature is what I would, I guess, make my motion. Does that make
I kind of
sense?
like Michael. What do you think about what Michael was saying? What's the board think about that? About the vaccination?
If
Is
we
that gonna
check
complicate
it all,
things?
Then, you know, and if we go down this week, it's under 4, but, you know, and then if we check it next week and it's back up to 17, then we're flip-flopping.
No, I'm
Right.
talking about him talking about the vaccinated people
Right.
don't have to mask.
Well, I know plenty of
Right.
vaccinated people that have COVID right now, so.
Yeah, if you start that, you're going to first off run into all kind of issues trying to find out who those people are.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
I mean, that's
Well,
why, I mean,
first of
you're-
all, that's to me, that's easy with the card. That's why they give the card. And Jim's got a question, so I'd like to hear from Jim.
Hey, thank you. The reason I connected this to that level per day is because of what's going on in the community. And so you're going to have a whole lot of transmission going on when we're at this high level. So each school is going to have multiple cases when we're at this level at 20 or higher versus if we're at 4. If you're at 4 per day, that means there's going to be a lot less transmission going on in the school. And so, you know, I hear the word flip-flopping, but I mean, it's really what I'm calling a layered response to that transmission level that I'm trying to make this recommendation on. You know, they did put into there that if the kids are masked, they don't have to be quarantined. That's where I get trying to help y'all with not having to quarantine a bunch of kids. And so that's, you know, keeping them in school is very important to me as well, and not just the transmission. But the reason I'm using those numbers is on the probability of the kids spreading through the school is going to be much less when it's 4 per day versus when it's 20 per day occurring.
And I guess if I can just highlight what I was saying earlier about the flip-flopping. As a parent of children still in the system, if I got something every week, okay, mask this week, mask. I as a parent, I'm leaving my school board shoes off right now. I would be, well, let's just make a decision because, and then let's readdress it a month later or 2 months later.
Jim, Michael also was talking about. He was
Mr.
also,
Matthew was saying he'd be glad to come to any of our meetings.
yeah, ask him about vaccinated people. Should they still have to wear a mask?
I heard that.
Yeah. Ms. Welker's question to you is, what is your belief about vaccinated individuals? Should they still be required to wear masks?
Yes, at this point, especially with the high transmission going on, same thing tied into how much transmission is going on in the community. 11% of our cases so far are vaccinated. So there's always the possibility of the kid that's been vaccinated of carrying it to other people. They're pretty well protected. So it's a kind of a complex question because it's one of those, you know, I wish that if you're vaccinated, you didn't have to wear the mask. And that would be a nice reward, I guess you could say, for getting the vaccine. But right now, the recommendations are to wear the mask, even if they haven't vaccinated, especially with this high transmission level going on.
Other questions?
Now, by being vaccinated, they also are excluded. The good thing about being vaccinated is they're also excluded from any quarantine requirements as well. But in this case, they're doubly excluded.
That makes no sense. You don't have to quarantine if you're vaccinated, but you still have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated. I mean, the CDC is just throwing up moving targets with their guidelines.
This is true.
Amen, brother.
That sounds great, Butch.
They're saying that the vaccinated can still carry it even though they're asymptomatic, and that's what they're trying to protect. So it's all about trying to protect transmission of it. And you know, even though the odds are much less that somebody has been vaccinated carrying it, they're still worried about that.
Carolyn,
Yes, ma'am.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for something, Miss Booth.
All right, I move that we accept the recommendation that Mr. Cheeseman give with the amended review once a month.
Okay. We have a second.
I'll second her motion.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Booth to approve Mr. Cheeseman's recommendation and that we look at it once a month, review it. And we have a second by Mr. Williams. Any other discussion or questions? If not, then all those in favor, raise your hand.
Carolyn, real quick. I want to read. Just real quick. I know we're ready to go. We've been on this topic long enough. I just want to restate my theory on the vaccinations. And Jim, if you can, next Tuesday or when you're available, come and just talk to us a little more about that. I guess that and any type of new data that we've got. If you can't do it Tuesday, whenever it's at your benefit.
Can you repeat that? I can hear what he said.
He's
I
asked,
didn't hear what Mr. Bilbro said.
Mr. Bilber, can you repeat it to Jim Madsen, please?
I guess I just wanted to reinstate my theory on the vaccinations and the benefit of the vaccinations and wearing masks. If we can get a little more information, I guess, from the health department, from you, maybe at a meeting or a side meeting or anything like that, that would be beneficial.
Yes, I'll bring your question, and look at it and then bring it to the next meeting that you invite.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, Carol.
That's fine. Back to the vote. Since we have Mr. Draper with us by phone, instead of raising your hand, all those in favor say aye.
You need a choral response, one person at a time.
Okay. Ms. Booth, of course, your aye since you made the motion. Ms.
Aye.
P, there we go. Ms. P.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
No.
did you say no?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Oliver,
No.
Mr. Allen,
No.
Mr. Bilbro,
I've stated my thoughts. I'm going to say yes.
Mr. Draper,
Aye.
That was a yes.
yeah. So we've got we've got 4. I wasn't even counting as we went along. We have 3 no's and 5 ayes, right? All right, so the motion carries. All right, Mr. Cheeseman, is there anything else you want to add?
We'll work with our principals tomorrow to establish the protocols in our schools for Monday. To all the board, I hope you understand how difficult of a recommendation this is. But I do appreciate you entertaining this thinking. So thank you.
Well, I want the community to know that even those of us that voted yes, we did so because we want to keep the kids in school. We don't want to see a bunch of kids have to go home quarantined, but we don't want them to wear masks. This is not a decision we wanted to have to come back and do. At least I didn't. I know I didn't. I know most of the rest of you did not. So, but it's up to us to keep them as safe as possible.
And I'll say this: it's quite a fence decision. I understand that we make those types of decisions, but being on the fence, I fell on the school and not in the driveway. I want the kids in school.
There you go. All right. If there's nothing else, then can I have Mr. Cheeseman, is there anything else we need to do?
No, ma'am.
All right. All right. Then Ms. P, could I have a motion from you to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Good night, everybody.
Hey, Carolyn, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you
Yep.
so much. All right.
Good luck,
Bye-bye.
Carolyn.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.